So friends, I am Nicholas Barla here, the facilitator of this webinar on this particular day. And I welcome each and everyone for this particular meeting. As this meeting is on Indigenous issues and peace education. A series of meeting has been conducted on building capacity for justice and peace, led by Jai Jagat 2020. And that's why I feel like starting this meeting with the slogan that Jai Jagat has got. So after me, please repeat with me. Jai Jagat.
Jai
All of us?
Jagat.
Yeah, Jai Jagat.
Jai Jagat.
Jai Jagat.
Yeah, thank you. So this means victory to the world, victory to this earth. And that's how this Jai Jagat has started its mission, spreading non-violence, peace, harmony, not only in India, but entire universe. Friends, the whole world is going through a crisis now. We are experiencing climate change, melting of glacier due to global warming, tsunami, earthquakes, heavy rain, extreme heat, and now we are affected with coronavirus pandemic. All of us shattered in a way, entire universe. Therefore, Jai Jagat, victory to the world is needed. We, the indigenous peoples, we have symbiotic relationship with nature. The nature protects us, and we, the indigenous people, also protect the nature. And therefore, we call this universe as Mother Earth. During lockdown time, I am experiencing fresh air here in Delhi city in India. The river Yamuna water is very clean, and it is very clear that due to negligence, unmindful destruction activities, and on the other hand, in reciprocal manner, the nature is also showing its tension through different ways. And therefore, there is a need of reconciliation, harmony, peace building with Mother Earth and with one another in the entire human society is an urgent wake-up call. And with these thoughts, I would like to begin this session. So let me brief you how the session would go. We have total 2 hours as a whole. And the theme of this today's session is Indigenous issues and peace education. And we have distinguished speakers today. I will give before they speak in short, but let me just give the name first. I myself, Nicholas Barla, will speak first just to introduce about the indigenous people in the world. Second, Mr. Abu Karimu from Ghana, he will be presenting. Third, we will have one video from Pascula from Mexico, then Rodrigo, then Joe Clotter, Mr. Premsi Tharu from Thailand, from Chiang Mai. So all the speakers will be speaking. So without spending much time, let me start the slideshow already you have. So we are approximately 476 million indigenous people in the world. We are of more than 5,000 different groups and spread in about 90 countries in the world. And 70% of us live in Asia and the Pacific. 16 point percentage we live in Africa. Almost 16% we live in Latin America and Caribbean area. Almost 2% in Northern America and 0.1% in Europe and Central Asia. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is how we are spread in all over the earth. So that is 90 countries out of almost 200 countries we are spread over. Next one. Yeah, we the indigenous peoples, we have rich cultural heritage. We have our own distinct languages, beautiful cultures, land, territory, traditions, and our ancestral homelands. Indigenous people have self-identity, or we call ourselves as original people or indigenous people on this earth. Indigenous territories contain 80% of the earth's biodiversity, which is very significant for each one of us all over the world. And 11% of the planet's forests are under the indigenous people's guardianship, which is also very important. Next one. But indigenous people are increasingly under assault from extractive industries such as mining, oil exploration, and agro-industrial projects. Governments and multinational corporations often violate indigenous people's rights by operating in our territories without our free, prior, and informed consents. We have lack of financial resources. We also lack decision-making platforms to demand a voice at the table and ensure that our bests are represented in our respective venues in seeking justice in the local level and in the national level. Our rights of indigenous peoples resist the invasions with tremendous courage and skill, but
Okay. So some of the experiences, as clearly stated, are one that we think that we are, as a people, we've lost the moral values of our country, and it's one of those things that is actually eating up our cultural practices, such as our way of life, the way we dress. So you come and you meet an African wearing what we call the batik tie and dye, wearing the smoke. All of those things are gone. We do no longer enjoy that kind of life. You meet an elderly person, like I meet Father Nicholas, who is say 50 years older than me, and the standard in my country as an indigenous person was to bend down a bit and greet him. But today you meet a boy of say 15 years and he just says hey, and that is it. So we have lost our moral and our values as as a people, and that is actually very, 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 very disturbing. We've also, the Senate family system has also been affected by this formal education. So the formal education, those days we used to have what you call your uncle, your aunties, and these are people who are also part of the narrative of your everyday life. Today, the system has broken completely, and it is now more or less like a father and a son, a brother and a sister, and that ends it. Whatever happens to you is neither the business of your great grandfather or your father or your uncle. It's all about you, your children, your wife, and this has affected the narrative of the people, of the indigenous people of Ghana. Then again, we look at number 4, is that indigenous mother tongue has also been lost. The current scenario in Ghana, or the current situation in most indigenous people, is that indigenous people can no longer even speak their own tongue because of Western education and because of colonialism. So you go to Accra, you meet somebody who has migrated from an indigenous community to Accra to work as a government employee. And he goes there, he marries, he gives birth to children, and the children cannot even speak his own dialect. The only dialect the children speak is English. And I am happy that the UN, for instance, has decided to dedicate this year, the next 10 years, from last year up to 2032, as the mother tongue year, so that indigenous people can be able to come to terms with that. Then I go to slide 2, and that is, I will address my mind to what are some practices in indigenous communities for peacemaking. Peacemaking is a very, very, very important thing for us as a people, and there are ways by which some of these peace issues are resolved in my country. One is cultural practices such as festivals. Now, festivals form a very, very important calendar of the year. So every year, there is a particular day that is dedicated for the entire community to come together, no matter how far they are. You can be in Asia, you could be in America, you could be in Latin America or India, where Father Nicholas comes from. Everybody else has to come home so that you come and then you celebrate this festival. When this festival comes, that is where we normally put the peace agenda at the forefront of all the things that we do in those festivals. So we use these gatherings to preach peace to our people. Again, peace is also promoted through outdoor games. And in my part of the world, football is very, very popular. And so sometimes we use football to promote peace. And we normally do it through intra. We normally do it through the intra-peace matches. You could have one tribe, playing football match against the other tribe. And we do that deliberately because many conflicts in Africa and in Ghana specific will happen because of 3 things. So conflict will normally happen because of undercurrents such as one ethnicity. So you have ethnic conflicts. So one tribe fighting another tribe. Then we could also have conflict coming as a result of chieftaincy. So somebody else wants to be a chief, and so there's that kind of chieftaincy conflict. That one is intra, not inter. Then you could also have land conflicts. People are fighting over land. And so the best way to preach about some of these things, from our experience, is to use football as a rallying point. and football match is organized. Football match, the players are told that in that match there are no winners and there are no losers. Everybody is a winner in that match. So normally the scores are even preempted even before the match starts. You understand? And so it's very, very important for us as a people in Ghana using football. We have what we call a tug of war, and is to have a very lengthy rope. And so the two tribes, one is at the right hand side, the other is at the left hand side, and you select people about say 10 here, 10 there, and they'll be pulling. So which one pulls the other? So I mean, it's called a tug of war, and it's one of those tools that we use to promote the peace agenda. Also, peace is also raised through what we call using the opinion leaders format, because in Africa, age is well respected, and so if you were having problems or challenges in your community with regards to the issue of promoting peace or bringing a lasting peace, you will definitely be looking at the elderly in the community to be able to preach that peace for the people to be able to listen in. It's very, 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 very critical for us. Now, we also look at how conflict resolution are there within the community. Now, conflict are also resolved through the elders of the extended family system. And this is what the Western education has come to break. So you could have the most elderly person in the community. When he speaks, everybody else listen. When he speaks, everybody else listen. So you normally, when there is some kind of misunderstanding between community A and community B, the elders of the community will then lay a complaint to this elder, who then calls everybody to a round table and then teach them on some of these issues. Then we have traditional rulers. We normally will refer to them as chiefs in this case, chiefs or kingmakers. Now the kingmakers are the people who tell the community who becomes the next chief. And so here it is the entire community then decides, using the chief's model, that this is the person we want to become the next chief. And so that is how that is done. We also have a cabinet. The cabinet is not just synonymous to the white man rule or the Western format. The chief has his entire cabinet, and they are carefully selected with some level of depth in terms of their negotiation skills, and they are picked, and they will superintend over the negotiating table and bring lasting peace to the people. Conflict are also resolved through opinion leaders, such as religious leaders. Religion plays a very, very important.
This is time to only 2 minutes are left, Abu. Just 2 minutes are, yeah. We are given 10 minutes, so the sound will be there.
Okay.
So just, yeah.
So conflict also resolved through opinion leaders, such as religious leaders. So religious leaders like the imams, like the pastors, and when they speak, then at least we could have peace. Then I look at my last point, Father Nicholas, just last point, and some of the practices of indigenous schools that affect differently. Indigenous schools uses a local material. Those are the one we're growing up as a child. You know, we're using what we call the counters. So stones were used to be able to do your mathematics. I mean, you were able to do 2 times 1, 3 times 1. You know, that times table is actually embedded in your head. But today, no, the narrative is different. What you normally have now is the WhatsApp, the computer, and all of those things. Then the use of art and craft, which we felt that has also been lost. I mean, when the school was about ending, you could have what you call an art and craft deba, where all the children were asked to specifically design. Maybe if the child's dream of becoming an engineer, you were asked to design using the local bamboo to design, say, a ship. Okay, but now all of those things have been actually lost. I think that my time is up, and then I'll just pause for now. And then once I get a second opportunity, there are other things that I think that I can add up to. Thank you very much, Father Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you very much, Abu, for beautifully bringing the indigenous issues and the practices, the good practices that you have. So thank you. Again, we will get the chance. Yeah. So now, now we'll listen to a video from Mrs. Pascuala from Chiapas, Mexico. She is a spokesperson for the Communitarian Government Council of Chilon, Chiapas, Mexico. She was elected in the assembly, and she leads the legal struggle for autonomy and self-determination of the settled people of Chilon, which has been going on since 2017. So we'll listen to the video. So, Jaman.
Reciban de nosotros un cordial saludo desde nuestra oficina del Gobierno Comunitario Región Chich. Soy la vocera del Consejo de Gobierno Comunitario Municipio de Chilón, Chiapas. Me llamo Pascuala Vázquez Aguilar y aquí presento también a las hermanas Melzanguané y también a los grupos de jóvenes de agroecovisual. Voy a hablarles principalmente la fundación del gobierno comunitario. En el año de 2015 empieza a fundar lo que es el gobierno comunitario, por lo mismo que había muchas demandas no resueltas por parte de las autoridades locales, en este caso el municipio. En ese año se veía un problema sobre alcoholismo, drogadicción y no se resolvían los casos. Y entonces al ver que nuestras autoridades locales y municipales no tomaban en cuenta nuestra petición de ver este asunto de alcoholismo y drogadicción, se organizaron los señores, los ancianos, las mujeres, jóvenes, para formar lo que es el Consejo de Gobierno Comunitario. Y es ahí que en 2017 se empezó a andar con el proceso jurídico para que sea reconocido ante las autoridades o el Estado reconozca este derecho al gobierno comunitario. Entonces se hacía una solicitud ante el IEPC y es ahí que empezamos con el proceso jurídico. Y hasta ahora pues no se ha resuelto, aunque nuestra petición pues está fundado desde el artículo 2 de la Constitución Política de los Estados Unidos Mexicanos y también en el convenio 169 de la OIT, donde habla de los derechos de los pueblos originarios. Bueno, aquí en el municipio de Chilón se divide en 11 centros lo que es el gobierno comunitario. Y uno de ellos es aquí donde estamos, en Región Chich. Y en estos 11 centros, un grupo de mujeres y hombres que se llama Melzanguanej, que se dice en español reconciliadores. Estos reconciliadores trabajan para resolver casos, por ejemplo, cuando hay conflicto entre hombres o entre mujeres o entre parejas, y por eso los reconciliadores hombres resuelven el caso de los hombres y en caso de conflictos de mujeres, ahí entra lo que es DEFEMI, en este caso las mujeres, Defensoría de la Mujer y el Infante, para ver el caso de las mujeres y el maltrato de los niños. Y entonces así funciona lo que es el centro de atención que conforma el gobierno comunitario, que son 11 a nivel municipal. Y vamos a hablar aquí en Región Chich, pues está en función o cómo funciona este centro. Hemos avanzado un poquito en cuestión de que hemos invitado o hemos absorbido a los jóvenes a formar parte del gobierno comunitario, en este caso con la educación agroecovisual, donde se empezó a trabajar aquí con los chicos, con las chicas, para que ellos aporten toda su juventud hacia la autonomía, hacia el gobierno comunitario. Y aquí pues en agroecovisual hemos visto cómo los chicos han puesto su interés en apoyar en nuestro proceso de lucha. En este momento de pandemia hemos visto que ha puesto su interés de ellos también elaborando videos, sacando información, haciendo trabajos colaborativos aquí en conjunto con gobierno comunitario para darle a entender a toda la gente la información de lo que estamos viviendo en estos días del COVID-19. Y es así pues de que hemos visto este esfuerzo y también pues para que no sea en vano, para que no se vaya a perder esta fuerza de la juventud, pues estamos soñando con la construcción de una pluriversidad desde nuestro gobierno autónomo, porque sabemos que con el gobierno hemos visto que los chicos terminan su prepa y ahí se quedan o se van a trabajar a Sonora agarrando vicio de alcohol y drogadicción, y a veces llegan aquí a la comunidad ya con mala fama, pues haciendo cosas indebidas como por ejemplo impulsar la drogadicción, el alcoholismo y otras cosas. Y entonces tenemos este sueño de construir la pluriversidad desde el gobierno autónomo. Y necesitamos la colaboración de todos. Sé que aquí con nuestros promotores pues están dispuestos a colaborar, y pues espero que cuando escuchen este audio y les toque el corazón para que este sueño de los chicos pues se haga realidad. Muchísimas gracias. Y aquí va a hablar la Melsanguané, doña Petrona Aguilar Ruiz, que funge como Melsanguané, reconciliadora de las mujeres.
Lekay mololabesh escopojondi de liayonta yutil de mensaje value de answiniketik ashantehbile ha Petrona.
Okay.
Hati katel hati binut ilya kilbe kotik swokol de molola kotik ta
We're
ansil.
experiencing some technical problems. Please bear with us.
Te ay tambah yung yakubel, ay te mah tambah yung te tayutina, tahwal na hinel. Pero alabin ora yestayal te ansetik te ay suwokolik, asan ya chahpan kotik. Y yashil te slamalik inal tayutil na. Pero hichminat ilakaltik ha primeramente te kahwaltik como stukel ha spesils na o chap atelmin ay tabal.
Hi, we seem to have some problem with the screen share. I'm just going to start it again. Please bear with us.
Anti ay te bokol yashil slamalik inal e ha nahil yash ya kalbetik wokol te tatik dios tak ulchan de ayotik tabal milal bayel wokol bayel vinyestal tahtoholtik te hotik ansotik sokti alaletik sokti winiketik ash bayel yestal te wokol tahtoholtik taskahtiunde te hotik te meba ovolotik pero hay un li ay te bandi ha te hons nahul bandi ya yicha panel ha te wokolil hay un ha nashicha ka na el chau ya yelte te vinca te li hay un mesa.
Y también vamos a escuchar la palabra del joven Jerónimo, que es el joven que está en educación agroecovisual, pero también colabora con los
Would you please show the screen also so that
universidades del gobierno autónomo. Y necesitamos la colaboración de todos. Sé que aquí con nuestros promotores pues están dispuestos a colaborar y pues espero que cuando escuchen este audio y les toque el corazón para que este sueño de los chicos pues se haga realidad. Muchísimas gracias. Y aquí va a hablar la Melsanguané, doña Petrona Aguilar Ruiz, que funge como Melsanguané, reconciliadora de las mujeres.
Mensaje value de Answiniketik, Ashantebele, Petrona Aguilar Ruiz, Atikatel, Hatibinotelia, Kilbe Cotics, Wokol de Molola Cotic da Ansil, Michminotil Aite, Tech Aitambayun Yakubel, Aite Machtambayun de Tayutina, Tahwalna Hinel, pero Alabin Ora y Estayal de Antetik de Aiswokolik, Ashan Chapankotik. Y Yashil Teslam Alik Inal Tayutilna, Erhichminat Ilakaltik, primeramente te Kahualtik, como Stukel, Haspisilsna o Haichap Telvin Aitabal Milal, y Banti Aitewokol, Yashil Slam Alik Inal, y Hanahiyash, Yakalbetik, Wokol, Tehtatik Diostak Ulchanyunde, Ayotik Tabal Milal, Bayel Wokol, Bayel Vinyastal, Tahtoholtik, Hotik Ansotik, Sokti Alaletik, Sokti Winiketik, Ashbayel Yastal, Wokol, Tahtoholtik, Taskachtunde, Te Hotik, Te Meba, Obolotik, pero Hayunli Aite, Banti, Hante, Huns, Nahul, Banti, Yayicha Panel, Hate Wokolil, Hayuna, Nashicha, Katana, El Chaush, Bayayel, Te Vinkatel, Te Liayon también.
También vamos a escuchar la palabra del joven Jerónimo, que es el joven que está en educación agroecovisual, pero también colabora con los Melsanguané hombres, que son los reconciliadores hombres. Vamos a escuchar su palabra.
Bueno, antes que nada les mando saludos a ustedes, todos los que ven este video. Voy a presentar ante ustedes, me llamo Jerónimo López Luna y trabajo junto con los reconciliadores, los Melsanguané Jetik. Y yo tengo un cargo de Cotaihuané, o sea, en español, defensor de territorio. Yo lo mismo trabajo con los Melsanguanejes, pero nada más yo tengo derecho de atender o ver los problemas de solo de los territorios o los sitios, todos los que son se caben en ejido. ¿Por qué? Porque yo manejo ley de agraria, por eso es trabajo, pero junto con Melsanguané Jetik, trabajo junto porque veo que aquí en nuestro centro o en nuestra comunidad hay mucha gente que llegan a presentar con sus problemas aquí en Centro de Atención de Gobierno Comunitario. Atendemos con gusto y no pedimos dinero ni mandamos a la prisión o mandamos a la cárcel los que tuvieron problema. Primero lo investigamos o lo analizamos y vemos, juzgamos los problemas, quién fue la culpa y luego se pone de acuerdo al mismo tiempo y levantamos el acta de acuerdo, así trabajamos entre nosotros, no pedimos dinero. Estas son mis palabras y gracias.
Bueno, es así como funciona el gobierno comunitario desde la región Chich. Y también pues cabe mencionar que aquí ante las autoridades tanto federal, tanto estatal, no nos han reconocido este derecho que está en la ley. Y mientras no lo reconozcan, nosotros estamos ejerciéndolo desde nuestras comunidades, desde nuestras regiones, con la gente que nos han dado la confianza o que nos han depositado esta confianza de ser autoridades en nuestras comunidades. Es aquí pues mencionamos esos derechos que todos ustedes ya lo conocen, pero aún así pues el Estado no lo reconoce porque aún viene un proceso de consulta. Pero nuestros conflictos, nuestros problemas, no va a esperar el tiempo de la consulta. Por eso nosotros estamos ya sembrando esta semillita desde nuestros jóvenes, desde nuestras comunidades y desde nuestras regiones. Queremos presentarle nuestro sueño de la construcción de una pluriversidad desde el gobierno comunitario en el estado de Chiapas, aquí principalmente en la región CHIC. La construcción de la pluriversidad es un sueño de todos y de todas, tanto de los chicos y de sus padres, que somos de diferentes comunidades que conforman aquí la región CHIC. Anhelamos una educación cimentada desde nuestras comunidades, desde el conocimiento de nuestros abuelos, de nuestros padres, de la gente de esta misma localidad, y también cimentada desde el sueño de los chicos, porque ya nos cansamos de una educación que nos imponen, digamos, el Estado. Hemos visto que la universidad o educación que dan desde afuera es una educación que la comunidad o los chicos o los educandos desconocen la base. Por eso el sueño de la pluriversidad anhelamos construirlo desde aquí de la comunidad, desde la región donde estamos, y con la colaboración de todos, tanto los padres de los chicos, los promotores y también pues las autoridades del gobierno comunitario. Y como por ejemplo aquí en esta comunidad muchos jóvenes se gradúan de la preparatoria, pero se van en busca de trabajo en Sonora, en Playas del Carmen o en lugares donde está muy fuera de su contexto y donde son absorbidas a ideas digamos de muy afuera, y al regresar aquí en el campo pues ya traen una idea de que ya la madre tierra o que su comunidad lo ignoran, o que ya no quieren vivir aquí, o que ya no quieren comer todo lo que producimos en esta hermosa madre tierra. Y entonces el granito de arena que nos van a dar abren camino para cambiarle esta idea a estos chicos, que no les echo la culpa a ellos, sino que nos han venido dando una educación fuera de nuestro contexto. Nos meten ideas en nuestra cabeza de que tenemos que estudiar para ser esclavos de una empresa, o de ser esclavos de alguien adinerado, o ser esclavas de la gente que tiene poder, sino que no nos dan una educación basada desde nuestro contexto. Entonces el sueño de estos chicos es de que tener una universidad pluriversidad donde abarque todo lo que es el contexto desde aquí en nuestro territorio, siempre y cuando trabajando desde nuestro territorio con la madre tierra, y esperemos su solidaridad de apoyo a este sueño, y muchísimas gracias.
Yeah, so that was from Mrs. Pascuala from Mexico, from Chiapas community. So I think it was a beautiful message that we heard. And now I invite to Mr. Rodrigo. Rodrigo is from USA. And okay, Rodrigo, you are most welcome to share your views now.
Hi, everyone. We want to thank you for the invitation to share the experience we are building from Mexico. My name is Rodrigo Yedra, and I'm a researcher at the university. Together with a group of people in solidarity, we are supporting the process of the communitarian government and the project of the Pluriversity Yutsilal Balum Milal, which is the way that they decide to name it. The members that work in the communitarian government prepare a video that you all see to share the experience. For them, it's not possible to participate in this meeting because in their communities there is not internet and the electricity fails a lot, so they prepare the video and asked me to share it. So we hope that it will contribute to enriching the organizational and educational experience for peace. It's only this presentation of the video. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rodrigo. Yeah, it was a nice presentation. Yeah, thank you. Give our thanks and love to your community, and all solidarity and support are with you all people. Thank you very much. Yeah. Now we'll listen to Dr. Joe Clutter from Canada. So Joe Clutter has worked with Edmonton's Indigenous peoples and other marginalized youth in Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada for last 30 years. And he started with popular theater workers, and he's also teacher and administrator, and impacted by early years of poverty and a sense of marginalization. The later studies in peace and education, Joe developed the Inner City Drama Project, and the Inner City Drama Project used popular theater, Aka theater of the oppressed, to give voice and a sense of empowerment to marginalized Indigenous and other youths. Joe co-developed the Inner City Youth Development Association, the umbrella organization for the Inner City Youth Engagement Program, and Inner City High School. Joe is active in the team and also in the process of transition leadership of the organization. As well as his ongoing involvement in the team, Joe developed pilot programs in education and the virtual world. So now, most welcome to Joe.
Joe, request you to please unmute yourself. Joe, we can't hear you. Can you please unmute?
Yes, that always helps to unmute yourself, I find.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So, as mentioned, I'm from the Inner City Youth Development Association. We started as a group called Inner City Drama, using theater to explore the lives of youth living in the inner city, which happen to be 90% Indigenous on the lower rungs of the social ladder. And they used stories, and which we put into theater to talk about the issues of their own lives and to solve their own problems at the same time. And that led to the creation of Inner City High School, because they wanted to go to school, and to later the Inner City Youth Engagement Program that provided support for them. So if I could see the first slide, then I would talk about that. So, so colonialism, the colonial process in Canada, as in many parts of the world, resulted in cultural destruction and psychological damage for many people. It shattered lives and destroyed communities. In Canada, there's a treaty-making process that after the environment was changed, the sources of the people's lives were destroyed, and railroads were built, and treaties were made that confined the Indigenous people to small plots of land. They're removed from their traditional territories and placed on these plots of land called reserves. And so for the second image, children were taken from their families. The idea was that the old ways are gone and we need to create new citizens able to live in this new world that we're creating. And so they were removed from their families and placed in schools, sometimes hundreds of miles away, like 700 kilometers. They were raised in these institutions without contact with their family. Often they were almost kidnapped from their villages and from their camps. And they were raised without parental love. They suffered from forced assimilation, cultural destruction, and for many, physical and sexual abuse. They were forbidden to speak their language. They were punished if they spoke their language. or for any any involvement in their own cultural celebrations, they were punished. The impact of these experience left many people, generations of people with trauma-based problems. And now we can see the next slide. And so right now, in the Indigenous population of young people in Alberta, where I am, sort of central northern Alberta, we call it Treaty 6 territory. The suicide rates among young people between the ages of 15 and 24 is 5 times higher for males than non-Indigenous males. For females, it's 7 times higher than for non-Indigenous females. Okay, we can see the next slide. For incarceration, out of all of the people that were admitted into the Canadian correctional system in the years 2013 and 2014, but it's similar right across the board. 41% of all the youth were Indigenous, while they make up in this part of the country 6% of the population. 53% were Aboriginal or Indigenous girls, and 38% were male. I think we need to see the next slide, slide 5. In our work, we have youth workers and social workers that reach out and contact youth on the street. We approach them with respect, with love and nurture, and bring them into our programming from the street. So, and maybe the next slide would be slide 6, which is an audio-visual presentation. We'll explain some of these issues. It's a very short
drama group. Good evening, everyone. We're delighted that you're all here with us tonight to play an active part in the Edmonton East Aboriginal Youth Forum. When the odds are far greater that Aboriginal youth will graduate from juvenile court than college or university, I think we know we have our work cut out for us.
What you're about to see, it's not that long, right? But it has a very important message, so, just pay attention. These are poverty-stricken children asking for some sort of help. Society chooses not to take notice of them and turns their back on them in their time of need. Because they are hungry, they steal for food. Now society takes notice of them. Now that society sees them, they see them but not as poverty-stricken children, but as criminals needing to be punished. This could be the result. Girls turn to prostitution, boys turn to pimps, and other sorts of street crimes.
It appears that there is public support for the performance group. But as the Alberta government begins reducing its deficit, funding to groups like Inner City High is cut.
We used scenes like that of 2 full-fledged plays to allow the youth themselves to deal with their own issues, and in some of the groups, because we had worked with different groups, wanted to take their stories out to the community to create awareness. So we did plays and scenes. We played in jails, in drug and alcohol treatment centers. We also played for a community of experience, meeting with people in remote communities experiencing the same kind of drug and alcohol and violence issues. And they work together to find solutions to their own problem. And one of the solutions that that particular group found was they asked us if we would start a school. So my background was also in education, and we knew that it was necessary, and we had started the process, but it was at their request that we started inner city high school. So we can see the next slide. That would be slide 7. Okay. Well, we're back at the beginning. I have to do it all over again now. So in the school, we meet in a circle 3 times a day. At the beginning, we were very small, and they were small, intimate circles. But now as we have grown, those circles become larger. And of course, the circle is traditional, but the reason why we created it was there's no sort of formal hierarchy involved. And the whole idea is for the youth to have a voice in their own school, for them to feel that they have the power to make changes. And these are young people that at last count, we had approximately 150. 71% had been forcibly removed from their home and involved with children's services. 71%. So that's like being raised without any kind of love, experiencing violence, having to live in a violent environment and to make your way in it. So we created kind of a safe and peaceful place, and it's part of the Indigenous culture to when you're involved in that, to create a family. Everyone is kind of like family members, and we create a community, and everyone has a say in how it goes and how we work. So the youth see it as their safe place, for 6-7 hours a day, and away from the violent environment that they live in. We can probably, and we offer. There's a lot of flexibility. The youth, there's no forcing them to stay in class, or they stay. We have a schedule. They follow the schedule. If there's trouble, if there's conflict, we bring people together, find ways to deal with the conflict. If it gets very serious, then it's like, okay, well, maybe you don't feel well today, but come back tomorrow when you're feeling a little better. And it kind of works like that. So in this school, we're building capacity through peace education. So many of the young people go on to post-secondary education, and then a lot get involved in helping professions, and come back to work with their own people in many different ways. Many over the years have come back to work in our organization, in inner city high school and in the youth development. But right now we have 4 youth workers working with us who were former participants in the program. So that's about it. You didn't even have to use the cane to get me off the stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Joe. It was wonderful to see how you are developing the youths, the indigenous youths, through education from childhood onwards in the high school to in the colleges and in the university. That's a beautiful. We'll talk again later. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we were supposed to, we should have another speaker from Northeast India, from Manipur, Mr. Surjit Hao Bijam, who was involved with a peace building and conflict situation since last 7 years. But unfortunately, he's not here. So now I invite Dr. Prem Singh Tharu from Thailand. Prem Singh Tharu is an indigenous lawyer and anthropologist from Tharu indigenous community of Western Nepal, having more than a decade diverse experience in human rights fields, including indigenous peoples, persons with a disability, children, youths, education, livelihoods, peace building and conflict management, and plus 5 years of teaching experience also. He is currently working with Asia Indigenous Peoples Pact based in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So, Prem Si Tharo, you are most welcome to present.
Dr. Tharu, can you please unmute yourself? Dr. Tharu, we still don't listen to hear you. Can you please unmute yourself?
Unmute.
Okay, yes. Now
Yes,
it's clear.
you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Father Nicholas. You have already introduced me, so I do not want to repeat the same introduction and consume the time. So here now, since our webinar topic is on indigenous issues and peace education, so I straightly want to put forward my experience, my understanding on indigenous issues and peace education. When you talk about indigenous issues, I want to repeat the same data from Father Nicholas what he presented in his introductory session. 70% of indigenous peoples are from Asia and Pacifics, and we indigenous peoples have really very strong majority in Asia and Pacific, as AIPP has been working in Asia level as a regional organization. We have really very good connection and information on indigenous issues in Asia, especially in from our member countries. Asia Indigenous People Pact (AIPP) has its one members in 14 countries of Asia. So based on that experience, I want to share the indigenous issues. The first indigenous issues is the issue of recognition. Without recognition of our identity, without a recognition of our dignity, means we cannot expect, means respect of our human rights. Means the first thing is means we born as a human being. We are human being, but we are not treated equally as others. So means we are all born free, but not equal. Yeah. So means there is some level of uh, down looking uh, uh, practices we can experience, and the state is the responsible as a guardian of the all nationals to give the recognition and respect the rights of all, but that is lacking. So the recognition is the main issue. And when you talk about in as the article 6 of UDHR, right to recognition before the law and right to equality before the law, that is missing. Means we hardly feel that recognition is really challenging. Sometimes the state they say that they don't have the indigenous people in their country. They don't like to address as indigenous people. They say sometimes ethnic minority, sometimes they say tribals, means they don't want to use and pronounce the indigenous people for the indigenous people. But it easily in India they say Adivasi, in Nepal they use Adivasi, and indigenous also they use. In Bangladesh they use Adivasi but not indigenous. In Philippines they use indigenous, but if you go in Myanmar they use ethnic, and if you go in Vietnam they use also ethnic. In Thailand also they use ethnic. So the countries, the state, they hesitate to recognize their citizens, their communities. Actually the state has to be the guardian to feel proud that we have also indigenous peoples, but they hesitate to recognize as their one citizen. They hesitate to address indigenous. So these challenges we are facing, and this is the root cause, because without getting such kinds of these recognition, means you can't get the dignified life. That's why there is the issue of right to land, forest and resources. We indigenous peoples live with the nature, live in the resourceful areas where there are forests, there are water, what we say, jal jungle zameen, means water, forest and land. Those our ancestral land and territories are full with natural resources, but those resources are, means are in the eyes of government, in the eyes of capitalists, uh, corporates. That's why they don't want to let the indigenous peoples recognize. If they recognize the indigenous people, they have to respect their rights over the land, rights over the resources. That's why they always want to marginalize, they always want to deprive from the recognition, they always want to exclude from all these opportunities. And you see, if we talk about the issue of land rights, forest and resources, that's really the challenging things. Means indigenous people, they are protecting, they are conserving those diversities, those natural diversities, those biodiversities, are protecting the ecology. But in the name of hydropower dam, in the name of means industrialization, in the name of wild animal sanctuaries, in the name of national park, those indigenous land resources are being grabbed, are being encroached. So the indigenous peoples, when they are trying to protect their those inherent properties, those their inherent natural resources, they are blamed of Naxalis, they are blamed of terrorists, they are anti-nationalists, they are means against the government, they are against the development. So these kinds of allegations we indigenous people have been experiencing, and being the victim of those allegations, and there are militarizations, and we are means our all resources, our lands and territories are being encroached, are being grabbed by those means kinds of uh, 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 government and industrial activities. And if indigenous people, they are trying to protect their natural resources, they are killed, they are arrested, they are illegally detained, and they are sometimes forcefully disappeared, and means lots of harassment to women, rape, and many more. So these are the very critical situations what indigenous people is facing. You can remember the cases coming from Philippines, in Mindanao, in Myanmar. You can we hear in the news Kachin estates, in India also, in Buster, and in that Gujarat was called Unity statue place. It's in Gujarat. Oh, yeah. So means in different countries, we hear different kinds of human rights violations happening at the indigenous people. So indigenous peoples are being victimized when they are trying to protect their natural resources, protect their land, and means their practices. The second, the the third indigenous issue is we indigenous peoples have our own kinds of indigenous knowledge and practices, and we have our one innovations. So those indigenous knowledge and practices, which are really very instrumental to contribute for the sustainable development, to contribute for the sustainable sustainable protection of the natural resources, to contribute to the sustainable production and consumption. Those practices, those knowledges are being ignored. Those good practices, those indigenous knowledges are being looked down. So those are also the challenges we indigenous peoples are facing. So indigenous knowledge and practices and innovations, which really contributing lots in the economic development, in the environmental protections, in food supply chains. So in lives and livelihoods of other peoples, those things are being ignored and being unrecognized by the state. And the fourth issue is, of course, we are talking here about peace education. So indigenous peoples have really means has their own kinds of education system. They educate to their children, to their generations, means youth children, in their own way. But those right to educations are not means guaranteed, not ensured in the native language, in the indigenous language. So that's being the challenge to access education. So if you cannot access education in your own native language, means you cannot also access the equal opportunity to develop your career or to get any kinds of means job opportunities and your involvement in other field. So right to education is really very challenging, and right to education is the eyes opening that opens the window, that opens the door to enter for further development of yourself and for your community. So that's really missing, and that's really very emerging issue now. And this while talking about this education, this knowledge practices and all, uh, in last UN Environment Assembly, there was also the theme of people's innovation and sustainable solution. The same theme was in the high level political forums, and this year also recently preparatory consultation for UNIA 5 was held, and it was also now the theme of act for nature. So when we are talking about act for nature, we should have to also the educations to how to protect the nature. It's not just in the word, but it has to be in the behavior, attitudes and actions. So those things are lacking, and those are really emerging issues. So these issues are, of course, we are encountering, we are coping with, we are experimenting, we are suffering, but these issues are not only just now the issues of the indigenous peoples. These issues should be the issues of the all, because if indigenous people in the country are unpeaceful, are unrespected, are discriminated, then the country means hardly can proudly can feel that okay, my country has these kinds of beautiful what's called nationalities, beautiful populations from different ethnic caste and communities, has different kinds of knowledge practices that are really contributing to the national development. And the development is for the people, not for the means some certain level of activities only. So it's in a general, indigenous peoples, they have to be respected, they have to be recognized as their practices which are really contributing for the national development, as well as achieving sustainable development goals, which is means aimed by the SDG. And while talking about
just 1 minute, Tharu. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Father Bala, you need to unmute.
1 minute. 1 minute, please.
Okay.
Then after again come back, then you talk. Yeah.
Okay. So if we talk about peace education, then peace education, our peace education is completely depending on the nature and culture. Our peace education is depending on dance, depending on song, depending on water, depending on stone, depending on the forest, depending on farming, and depending on the season and time, morning, evening, means night, midnight, midday. So we have our own kinds of education, and as per the months also we have our own kinds of peace education. As per festivals we have our own kinds of education, and those educations are really very instrumental educations, and very encouraging and inspiring educations that teach to the children and the new generations how to respect to the culture, how to respect to the society, and how to contribute for the development of the community. So once they contribute for the development of the community, then simultaneously that contributes for the national development. So it's really means the peace education of indigenous people is really instrumental and really contributing for the peace building process. And now here, when we talk about all these things, ultimately goal we are planning to achieve is justice and peace. So without peace education, without addressing the issues being faced by indigenous peoples, being faced by means person with disability, being faced by women, children, youths and all, it's not possible to establish justice and peace. And justice and peace institutions who are there in the positions to address and guarantee the rights of all these communities and then group of people, they should have also strengthened their institutions. They have to also strengthen their mechanisms. They have to respect means all their rights. They have to respect the articles written in the UDHR. They have to respect the articles written in UNDRIP. So either binding or non-binding legal instruments, those are the responsibility of the states to respect. Because binding means, it's forceful. Unbinding means, of course, it's flexibility. But again, again, if you want to make your country develop, your country well recognized and have to be respected, all citizens equally, then it's really beautiful to address the rights of all and to address the issues of all, to listen your people, not only means some mainstream, but to the people who are marginalized, who are left behind by origin, who are left behind in the opportunities, who are left behind in the education system, who are left behind in the political opportunities. So it's really important to be as a guardian of the citizens of the nation. The state must have to be more accountable and responsible in hearing, addressing the issues of Indigenous peoples. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prem Tharu. There are so many issues and so many also. There are ways of solutions that could be worked it out. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing this deep experience with all different Asian countries, in all different countries. So that's a beautiful experience we had. So thank you very much, all the panelists plus all the viewers. So first session we have finished now. Just 1 hour has been over. So now we'll begin the second session. But now we'll have a 5 minutes of break. There will be some music and songs will be there. But after 5 minutes, again, we will come back. We'll start the next session. And to all our viewers, I would like to request you that whatever questions or clarifications you have got, kindly please use in the question and answer that that is there in your right side of the computer, or in the chat you can put. And our all technical persons, they can send the questions, and we'll see how things goes. So now we'll have small break to drink water or tea or something like that. Then again, after 5 minutes, we'll begin the session. Thank you very much, Janmaji. So next to Janmaji will begin his song and music. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just share one song with you. This is a journey of the Jai Jagat Yatra based in Armenia, but it also gives a background of the entire Yatra. We hope you like it. Thank you.
सबके हित के वास्ते अपना सुख विसारे जा, सबके हित के वास्ते अपना सुख विसारे जा। जय जगत जय जगत जय जगत पुकारे जा, जय जगत जय जगत जय जगत पुकारे जा। अपना सुख विसारे जा सबके हित के वास्ते अपना सुख विसारे जा.
But in Armenian way, we should say.
We will reconvene it when it's possible.
Thank you. That was a brief of the Jajagat Yatra. And now handing it back to Father Nicholas. Father Nicholas, sorry, your mic is muted.
So welcome back for the second session now. It was beautiful music and yeah, songs and dance and different scenery of Jai Jagat Jatra. And this Jai Jagat, as told, the victory of the universe, victory of the world. So it had begun on 2nd of October from Delhi, from Mahatma Gandhi's his burial place, and it was going up to Vienna in Switzerland. So, but on the way, because of this whole lockdown system and all the things, our team, they returned from yeah. So they have returned and
Armenia.
They have Armenia. Yeah, thank you, Armenia. Yeah, and yeah, we are looking forward. But the aim and objectives to propagate for justice and peace and harmony and non-violence, this one continues in different ways and different means, and that's Jai Jagat. So now, to all our panelists, we have, yeah, you have brought out so many things. That's very good. Thank you very much for all the things. Now, again, I would like to ask you some of your, really in your area and in your communities, what are some of the experiences that indigenous communities and between the mainstream, the colonial system, that you feel the difference? Maybe that way how we can bring out, and then slowly we'll go how to come out, or what are the ways of solutions. So that way how we should come out. So may I invite now with Dr. Joe in Canada, how you see that our indigenous communities versus maybe mainstream colonial groups, and how you are working out to overcome the differences.
Joe, you're on mute.
Okay, that's better. Okay, sorry about that. In this particular area, it took over 100 years of education to create the situation that we're in now, where Indigenous people are less than second-class citizens, are suffer from harmful stereotypes, addictions, and all those serious social problems. And I think it's education that can get us back out of it and begin to fight for our rights and demand our rights. I think education is the tool that we use.
Yeah, good. Nice. Thank you very much, Dr. Joe. Maybe we can go to Rodrigo. Rodrigo, would you please explain some of the practices that indigenous community has got for this reconciliation process and peacemaking process in among the indigenous communities?
Yeah, thank you. First I want to tell you about the context of Mexico. We have a big problem with the violence on Mexico. In the last years, we have like 250, I don't know, 1,000 of person who been killed in the violence in this name drug against the war, against the narco traffic. And we have like, I don't know, 15,000 people disappear. So in this context, we need to create alternatives. And in this case, on Chiapas, the indigenous people, the Celtal culture, try to create and recover the experience of the ancestors. So in this case, they call Metzalguanec, who is the name of the man and woman who try to solve the problems in the community. They said that in the Celtal cosmovision, they name that is Gokol, that it's like a problem, and is when the herd lost his balance. So they try to talk with the people who are in dispute and try to find a balance. This is very difficult to explain because it's a long process that the fixers, the Metzalguanec, talk with the two groups and try to find a better way to solve these problems. It can, during like a month, 2 months, the time that they need. So it's part of the alternative that they think for, I don't know, the growth violence in their communities. They try to solve in the scale of the own communities, in these people, in their town. So maybe this doesn't work for all the country of Mexico, but in their countries, the violence is not disappear, but it's low. So it's one of the alternative, and the other one is this project, the education project through diversity project, and it's try to integrate the young people to learn different skills to solve the problems in the community. So it's one of the experience that I can talk about.
Okay, nice, thank you. Maybe another question to you. Pascuala, she was speaking about slaves of the rich people and slaves of the money. So these two aspects she was bringing out in the video. And now to how to overcome from this slavery system to freedom. So what activity, what steps are being taken by the indigenous communities?
Well, first of all, I try to explain again, they have a big problem in this community because they try to make an alternative because the political parties don't solve their problems. So they thought that if make another kind of organization between the woman and the men's, because they have a lot of work with the church, the Catholic Church, just Jesuitas. I don't remember how can I say in English, but well, I think that you can understand the mission can work with the people to solve this problem. So these are like a judge, a new judge, a new kind of solve the problems. So they don't think that their jobs need recognition from the state. They work, I don't know, like outside the government, the federal government, but they try always to fix these problems without the jail, without a prison. So, well, it's another kind to work. They have, I don't know, like 50 years, not like 10 years working in this process. And well, it's an experience that they can share with all of the other communities.
Okay, nice. Thank you. We'll come back again. Yeah. Some important points are coming out very nice way. Mr. Prem Tharu, you spoke about so many issues and within the community and external issues from outside forces and all. Now, according to your observations, you have a very rich experience of different countries in Asia Pacific region. So, what are the conflict resolutions by the communities that you see the possibilities in Asian region by the community? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for it's a very important question. Indigenous communities, they have their own governance system. They have their own indigenous traditional systems. So the system is in place. Governance is in place. It means they have been maintaining their peace and order, their one kinds of customary law and order in their society. Means why we need rule of law. Means rule of law is not only the things what is written, but the rule of law is the things what you have in your attitudes, what you have in your practice, and what you have been practicing since ages. Even it is not written, but it's in your belief, it's in your attitude, it's in your behavior. So indigenous peoples have that kinds of customary law. Even most of the indigenous communities don't have in a written form, but they have in their practice. So by those their customary governance systems, their customary law and order, they have been dealing with the conflict situations seen or happening in their land territories or in their communities. And the most important thing is indigenous peoples, they believe on self-determination, they believe on their collectiveness, they believe on their unity. If they have these kinds of inherent nature, means if they have means connected with each other in a group, means they always think that okay, we should do for our community. If there is less conflict of interest towards the individual interest, then that doesn't lead towards the conflict. Even there are any kinds of conflict, they solve themselves through their mutual discussions. They have very participative practices, they do the discussions. So for example, in Nepal, in Tharu indigenous community, they have burger system. So burger system is this traditional is the indigenous traditional institution of Tharu that governs the society, that governs the community. It's not only for the development, but for the daily law and orders are also maintained by those institutions. all community members, they are equally respected, and they are equally encouraged to respect to those institutions and decisions made by those institutions. And the decisions and the peace and justice are maintained by those institutions are really participatory. So no one is excluded, all are equally respected, and they have the feeling of equal respect to all also. And similarly, in Bangladesh, there is one indigenous institution called called wait, called Karbari. That Karbari is in Chittagong hill trek, and that Karbari is recognized by the government. So the head of the Karbari institutions is being also stipend by the government. So there are really good systems in place. And if you come in Thailand, current indigenous communities, they have current indigenous communities, they have HICO, and that HICO system is really maintaining peace and order in the society. And in Philippines, if you go in the northern part of Philippines, there is Obobo, and that Obobo is really still in the practice, and they have been maintaining their one traditional systems. They have been maintaining their law and governance in their community. And the most important things, I think you have heard, Tagal system in Malaysia. Tagal system, it is also recognized by the government, and government consult to this Tagal practicing indigenous communities. If the government wants to do any kinds of development activities, government takes the approval from this Tagal. And these days, as my Malaysian friends were updating me, now there is traditional Tagal and modern Tagal. So still there is choice, either community wants to go in the modern Tagal or in the traditional Tagal. Modern Tagal means the decision, it comes from government, and they have to agree, means they have to discuss, of course, the consultation is there, but the things come as a frame from the government. So most importantly, we can find a similar practice in India also. There is Goladhan practice. They have such kinds of means practices where they discuss, and then they sort out any kinds of conflict in their communities. The good thing is, why these things are happening, why indigenous peoples, they are united, they believe in the collectiveness, why they believe in the means believe in the believe in the community systems, because they are inherently means getting the school of collectiveness, means their harmony, their peace, all these things are inherently tightened with the collective school of thoughts. So the indigenous peoples, their practice, their means their way of participation, their way of dealing with the issues are really in complete and are really full and effective participatory way. Each and every households of the individuals, they get equal opportunity to present their opinions, to discuss their means issues. That's why they believe means the decisions made by the indigenous institutions are really valid and rational and really acceptable for all. And another thing, because the mainstreaming these administrative institutions and the institutions which provide justice and peace, those are mostly away from our access, away from the indigenous peoples. That's why also our indigenous practices, they are faster and better and really suitable, and then providing really what we say, justice and peace to in the community and to the community people. So that's the thing we can find, and the way we are indigenous peoples are dealing with the conflict.
Yeah, Nice. Thank you very much. Very nice. So many examples. Yeah, very good. May I ask Abu from Ghana? Now, as Mr. Prem Tharu brought so many examples from different countries, how in Africa all these practices are there some practices like this? Which one we can learn from each other in promoting the peace and harmony in our communities? Abu? Hello, Abu.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. Just yeah. You put on your video and yeah, sound system.
Yeah, it's okay. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the practice in Africa, like I've earlier alluded to, is we, before the invention of the whites, or if you like, of civilization into our system, we already have how we promote peace and how peace is negotiated at the very top. And so, like I've stated earlier, we have annual festivals. And festivals are very, very important for the entire narrative of the African kingdom. Annually, every year, we gather. And once we gather, we tell ourselves that, look, for any development to come into your community, you first of all must have peace. So without peace, you can't even do development. Then again, like I've stated, the extended family system was one of the basic tools that was used to rally people around the peace table. And people were made to believe that if the community was peaceful, then everything was okay with it. If the community wasn't peaceful, then everything wasn't okay with it. We use traditional rulers. And so if, for instance, we're to share the national cake, the argument is made that, look, choosing between building you a school and then bringing, say, the army or the police to come and prevent, or to come and then, if you like, police the town for peace to prevail. Choose between the two, which of them you like. And any smart community will go for the investment in terms of the education of their children. So that is what we use. Like I've also said, we also use plays like outdoor games, like football, for instance. It's one of the big platforms that will promote peace in Ghana and in the entire African continent. So it could be a football match, and the football match could be organized between Ghana and Nigeria. There seem to be, so much suspicion, animosity between those two countries. But when it is football, we say the language is special. It doesn't discriminate. So let's football together. Also, around in football, they could use what we call tug of war, like I've said. So it's a very long rope, very thick, and you have the opposing people, one pulling here, the other person pulling there. Then you could then come together. Another area that I think that in Africa we use mostly to preach peace is the pulpit. The pulpit, like you're a Roman father. So before the priest go onto the pulpit to preach, the first thing he preaches is peace. Peace, peace, peace. Because without peace, there cannot be development. Without peace, there cannot be cohesion. Without peace, there cannot even be the togetherness that we are so much and proud of. And so we use the pulpit, that is the church and the mosque, as one of those main pillars in bringing peace then together. They also use women. Women are very critical in the peace negotiation. I don't know of other jurisdictions, but in Africa, for instance, where there is war, women are not killed in war. It is a crime to kill a woman in war, no matter how serious it is. So if one community invades another community, the women are spared. It is only the men. And even if you're a baby and you're a boy, you're even a day-old baby, you'll be killed. But even if you're 100 years and you're a woman, you'll be spared. Now, what happens is this, that it is the women who will tell them that, look, you the husbands, you have passports. The politician, you have passports. as an indigenous person, I've never even seen as a passport before. So if you allow the men, the troublemakers, to bring the community to its knees, they can get a passport and go to the airport and maybe take a flight to America or take a flight to Canada, where my friend Joe is, or my friend from Thailand, where we eat the best rice from Ghana. I mean, the Thai rice. So, I mean, peace is one of those major ingredients, and we do not take peace lightly. We think that before there will be any progress within the entire African society, it must be peace. Unfortunately, what has happened to the African terrain is that civilization and investors who have come to scoop on Africa's resources have come to divide and rule us. So before these Europeans and everybody else came to the African terrain, we didn't know Nigeria, we didn't know Ghana, we didn't know Togo, there was no South Africa, there was no Mozambique, there was no Morocco. Africa was one. But they came to partition Africa based on the resources that Africa had. And to the extent that after taking all of these resources, I mean, we cannot even be proud of the things that we have as a people. So if you ask me, I think that it's just the letter that I want to.
Yeah.
I mean, the people are beginning to wake up of
some sound problem with Abu.
Father
Okay.
Nicholas?
Yeah, okay, Abu, yeah, okay. May I request all the viewers, now your turn, so please you can write your questions or some inquiry through chats and question and answer. And afterwards again, we'll deal on that. And
Father Nicholas? Hi, Ria here, part of the Jai Jagat team. So our viewers have asked 3 questions.
Oh, okay.
So I can just read them out one by one, and you can take it. The panel can decide who to address the question.
Okay, please go ahead. Yeah.
The first question is from Athili. She's asking, how do we deal with indigenous people who have been co-opted with their current host nation states? It is the section that allows indigenous people lands and territories to be extracted and plundered, give perspectives from the different countries that are presented here. I think in connection to this question is another question that we have, so both of it can be clubbed together, I suppose. So Ginny asked the question as, what experience do panelists have about peaceful methods indigenous people and communities have used to stand up and protect their land and biodiversity when threatened by external forces of business global companies who may destroy local resources? How can international support groups help? So probably we can address these 2 questions and then move on to the third one before we conclude the session. Thank you.
Okay, so this behind every host, she's working from behind, she's organizing the entire thing. Thank you very much, Ria. So now we have from the viewers, all our friends and those who are those nations in different ways, those who have co-opted land in terms of extracting industries or plundering our land in different ways for different purpose. So how do we assert them in peaceful way, in our indigenous way? So who will answer this question? Maybe Joe. Okay. Prem, yeah.
Yeah. Indigenous peoples, the first thing we are, of course, means our land territories. The root cause is recognition of our identity, means our dignity. So that's lacking. So the indigenous peoples, they the first thing, they should be legally recognized, means their identity should be legally recognized. So this should be also means their rights over land and resources should be guaranteed in the laws. And means the constitution of the nation, which is the mother of the nation, that should incorporate, that should endorse the legal provisions which are being envisioned by UDHR, United Nations Declaration of the Rights of United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Those provisions which are envisioned by those international legal instruments, those should be endorsed by the legal laws. And after endorsing those legal laws, international legal laws into the national laws, those should be again, means constituted act. Suppose in India there is Forest Right Act, and Forest Right Act has talked about the rights of indigenous peoples and the rights of indigenous peoples over forest lands. And there are two kinds of rights: one is individual and another is collective. So means those things are all means that forest right which has stated in the Forest Right Act has been already guaranteed in the constitution. If you see Gram Sabha and the means scheduled tribes areas, all those things are already guaranteed in the constitution. That's why based on that constitution, Forest Right has made it simplified how the indigenous peoples, they can they can access their forest rights. So the first thing, it should be legally recognized and should be guaranteed in a legal way. And in the meantime, the laws is there, everything is there, but those laws are not going to work itself. There is need of proper education on those legal provisions to the implementing government agencies and to the people who are the right holders. It should be both equally means important to be educated. Just indigenous peoples, if they know their rights, but the service providers, right holders knows, but the duty barriers they don't know. And the right holders, they go for means claiming their rights, but the duty barriers, the government people, if they don't know and they say, oh, we don't know, there is no such provision, you go back, means they don't entertain properly. So the second thing really important is proper education on those rights, on those legal provisions to both the right holders and the service providers, the state service providers. The third thing, how we can make it possible, means we indigenous peoples and the organizations who are working in the field of indigenous people's right regarding forest land and all, and the other stakeholders who are also similar means field of work working in the favor of, in the dimension of human rights, those organizations can be also part of all these things. So we can go in a joint way to means sensitize both, not only the right holders, but in the meantime to the service providers. That's the way we can make it happen, and we can protect the excessive exploitation of land resources from the indigenous land and territories.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yeah. Maybe we would be happy to listen to Dr. Joe in Canada, how you are doing all this type of issues, this type of conflicts with the indigenous groups, and how you are asserting your your rights in your Canada experience.
Well, as I mentioned, the extraction of moving people off the land, placing on small reserves, began the process of resource extraction. And with resource extraction, it just kind of started with fur with fur, with lumber, now to oil, and indigenous rights have been run over in the process and ignored. But recently, in the last while, there's been blockades. So blockading transportation thoroughfares, like railroad, for example, logging roads into forests. And the purpose of the blockades is to force negotiation, to facilitate negotiation. And the recognition of indigenous governance over certain areas. And there has been some success at that. In Canada, there was a Truth and Reconciliation Committee that traveled across the country, listening to stories of maltreatment and ignoring indigenous rights. And the panel made 94 recommendations to address these issues. It's a process. Of course, they're working on them, but that's kind of how these things have been addressed here, and also through education and through fighting in the courts.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Ria, anything else?
Yes, so we have kind of crossed our scheduled time, so it would be really nice, Father Nicholas, if you can conclude the session at the same time, probably try answering the questions as well and conclude the session. It would be really good.
Yeah, okay, nice, thank you. Yeah, very interesting questions and very thought-provoking practices that are going on among the indigenous people, which is a very enriching one. Yeah, particularly Prem Tharu brought out from all different countries, so which is very rich. So actually, so first time we are meeting this way from different countries and different communities and listening to one another. So really, it was a very experiential, very deep experience actually to learn from one another. So that way. Maybe at the end, I would like to say, see, our indigenous peoples, some of the practice, see, we have self-sufficiency actually, you know, because I am from a forest village, and I don't require actually anything. Forest is there with me, food is there available, trees are there. So that self-sufficiency I had, and we were respecting the nature, the animal, and forest, and water, and everything will not harm to anyone. So this is the good nature that we have. So that way, it was a really very good. So that's what we call a symbiotic relationship that we had with the nature and human persons, which is very good. So that way, and we have practiced non-violence in our life, and still continuing. Those who are in the forest villages, still they continue. And the need that we want, it is wants are so many, but it is a need-based approach actually. The Adivasis, the tribals, the indigenous people, we follow it. So I think we have to promote all the things. And I had the example of one grandmother in Canada. Once I had the opportunity to go to the Queen's University, and she was a very nice way she was narrating, the birds as their friends, the fish as their brothers or sisters, the animals as their cousins, of the forest as their relations. So this way how she was narrating and she was praying amidst the all intellectuals in Canada. So I was thinking, so the indigenous, the community, that attachment we have with the nature, with the universe is very deep. And this has to be, this lesson has to be learned by the other communities, no? So then we don't distract it, but we can need-based, we can approach. So that way how we can develop the things. And a very good approach, Tharu, brother, he brought out. And we have in India actually one Baba Simon Urao. He has been awarded by Padma Shri award by Government of India. And he is leader from a young boy of 16 years. And he is now almost 88 years. He is still leader. And he practices all these things the harmony, peace, helping one another, cooperation, everything, and everybody respects. And he was invited by the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court of all the justice, they invited him to take a lesson from him. And he was telling me one day when I was discussing with him, so he said, this is our very, our heart, our indigenous people's heart and thoughts are very just, no? There is nothing of anything any to discriminate one another or to do any harm to another, but we see equality and in rights and in justice sense. So it is in our heart. So which one we need to promote, and therefore other that Manki, Munda, Manji and Padha systems are there. So what is the traditional leadership? They actually take care of the community in each villages without government. So these are the governance systems that we have still in practice in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. So once really this type of values and practices are practiced, so automatically the justice, equality and fraternity could be experienced in the community, in the country and in the global level. And that will follow automatically the peace, joy and harmony. So that way how we look forward. So maybe thank you very much friends for being with us, and thank you Jai Jagat 2020 for organizing this opportunity to bring all the indigenous people of the world together. And we need to meet again. And now we'll have the final indigenous music by Jai Jagat 2020. So I thank you all the honorable speakers for giving your time and energy and your rich experiences of your communities, of your country, which is just so nice. So beautiful to learn from one another. And all the viewers, thank you very much for your being with us, listening to us, and giving so many questions, very interesting questions. And all of us, we need to work together and bring out the best values, the human values that we have, the human values the indigenous community can offer to the entire globe. So that way we are, all of us are very rich and very important people. So may I request all of you to think about that, and we will be in touch again, and we can work out like this, coming together in this type of virtual meeting. So thank you very much.